Welcome to Northwest Arkansas Investing Podcast, your go-to source for real estate investing in Northwest Arkansas.
Whether you're a seasoned investor just starting out, we bring you expert insights, market trends, and practical strategies to help you build wealth through real estate.
From buying and selling to property management and long-term investment planning, we cover it all so you can make smart, informed decisions in this fast-growing market. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Northwest Arkansas Investing Podcast. We have the son of Tom Allen, Matthew Allen, here with us. If you listened to the episode before, we just interviewed Tom Allen, and now we are here. Fast forward. We just did the interview.
Yeah.
Matthew, thank you so much for being with us, man. I want to start with like a quick overview of yourself, how you got to where you are today. What did it look? Did you do previous jobs to where you currently are now, and what does it look like, and what you currently do?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. So went here to the U of A, graduated from there. I was working at a local bank throughout college and worked there for a little bit after graduation, just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And, my first thought was, real estate is always in the back of my head. I mean, it's just been around my family for so long. So just the exposure was there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I tried the corporate route and, interviewed a lot with, Tyson and Walmart, some other stuff. And, just had friends doing that and saw how it was going. And, I just wasn't sure if that was for me or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's, the security I didn't feel like was there. I feel like I, get motivated by, getting paid for what I do per se. So I thought some sort of sales job would be a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about the car business because I'm really into cars. Thought it'd be fun, but I decided I want to have my weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And so ended up doing real estate. Had just figured I'd just, have my father, who you just interviewed, and have him as sort of like a mentor, someone to kind of follow and learn from and all that. And also, there's a lot of other great people in my office that I like to collaborate with and learn from too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's been a fun ride. That's how I ended up there. And it's been well so far.
I love how you were in the banking industry, actually, in college, and then you weren't all just like first to jump in, like I'm 100% going into real estate. You even talked about cars a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
Tom kind of talked about that on the previous, like not imposing well. So that's interesting. That were you thinking about going finance before you went into real estate, or what was the thought there, or just sales?
Oh, a little bit. It was more of just like a family friend. I needed a job throughout college and wanted to work. And a family friend was the president of the bank at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, you can hop on here, work throughout here, work your way up if you decide to stay with it," type thing. And he was actually no longer with the bank whenever I graduated college. So that path also, I felt like was closing. So that was another reason for me to look elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
Makes sense.
I know that there's a lot of hard work to get where you are. And I know it wasn't given, because I've heard people where they're like, hey, my dad's owned a business here for 31 years, Tim Stanley, and a lot of them would be like, oh, you're successful because of the foundation you were given because of him. What's it look like, and which is totally not true. What's it look like to grind and get it yourself, but also have, you're not just going to not use the resources that are available to you. It'd be like being beside drinking water and being thirsty and not drinking it. What's it been like to like forge your own path and grind and learn, but also have the resource right next to you? You need it. Yeah,
so it's definitely, it's very gratifying to do it on your own. And there's a lot of people that, have good opportunities, through their family to, follow that same tradition and carry it on. And they choose to go a different route just out of, the sheer fact of, hey, like, I don't want to be seen as someone that, is just, benefiting off what my family's laid out for me type thing, which I get.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, pretty much everyone I've talked to about this has said I'd be foolish to, try to just do it on my own, which, it could end up working out, of course. But, I just feel like it's there, and I got a good opportunity to learn and hopefully build something successful in the future and, carry on what's been started and, also just help others around me. It's, got to think of others that are surrounding you, those in the office, those that you do deals with or, represent. And so I felt like I was in a good position to succeed and also help people with their real estate needs, being that I'm at a great company with a lot of good people that are talented at what they do.
Did you ever mentally go, well, I don't want to take this path because it feels too easy? Like, was that ever a thought?
no. I mean, I knew it wouldn't be easy.
Yeah.
'Cause, I was just, it's real estate. I mean, I felt like I understood it, but admittedly, when I actually got into it, it was still not everything I thought it was. You know? Yeah, I thought I understood it. It's just one of those things where people say it and it's true. Like, act as if you know nothing. You start something new. And I didn't act like I knew nothing, but I would definitely realize I was a novice. Definitely didn't think like I knew everything. And that was definitely the case.
Yeah.
It's a long learning curve, These deals, there's a long ramp up period to them in commercial, and it's very common that they take months from beginning to end, and sometimes over a year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it takes a while to kind of cut your teeth and, bang out the reps to get good at it. So, I mean, it's a longer learning curve.
Well, walk us through a little bit of what you're doing right now. You're in the commercial field, correct? You're doing commercial leasing?
Strictly commercial, yes.
Okay. Strictly commercial, which is sometimes where I want to be after mom doesn't like a paint color. So I know Brandon and I can resonate on that. Walk us through, are you doing commercial leasing? Are you helping people? Are you just focused on leasing? Are you doing purchasing and selling commercial, or what does it look like for that for you?
All the above. Okay. So, it's people, that's kind of one, I guess we'll call it a misconception of people on the outside. When they think of commercial, they think we're just doing investment sales. And that is a part of what we do. It's a fun part of what we do, but it's also, leasing is a big game around here. There's a lot of money in it because look at the building we're in now, the ones around it, like all that space is getting leased and someone's representing somebody on all those leases. And so like there's a lot of money to be had in it. More often than not, they're smaller deal sizes than the investment sales that you see in the articles, but sometimes they're bigger.
Yeah.
And also they all add up, they all compound. And so leasing's big. I like doing it. It's a lot of fun. It can be frustrating. It's definitely tedious, not for the weak of heart sometimes. And obviously, if you want to have a very complete practice and you want to be very well-rounded, so you got to do that. You also need to supplement it with the big investment sales deals and with the big land sales deals. And you get those one-offs too when you know someone that has a business that needs to relocate, looking for a building of a certain size. And if you're able to capitalize on all those things I just named, you'll have a pretty good little career for yourself.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you, for you specifically, do you have a particular niche that you're kind of? It seems like in the commercial space, oftentimes you have guys that are, specifically do industrial or do retail or do, strip centers or whatever. For you, do you have a specific niche that kind of you go after, or are you kind of able to kind of juggle them all, I guess, if you will?
I feel, and I'm not the only one that feels this way, that this area, though it's growing and there's a lot of upside to it, it's not big enough yet where you can just focus on just one thing and be successful.
Yeah.
It's you need to be doing investment sales, you need to be doing industrial leasing and sales, you need to do office leasing, land sales, you need to be storage facilities, you need to be well-rounded and do a little bit of everything.
Diversified for sure. It sounds like you're pretty diversified within the commercial space. And I know one of the projects you're involved in right now, the old Steak and Shake right by, I don't know if you guys, because you guys are Fayetteville guys, but the Steak and Shake by Home Depot and the Rogers Whole Foods that's going in, which is a huge development.
Yep.
You see Matthew's sign on that. What other... That's it. So that would be a leasing project,
Yeah. So we're in the middle of running some numbers which you've got the Steak and Shake building under contract, but we are running some numbers to buy the land adjacent to it to build more retail space. Just to we don't have to charge as much rent if we have more square footage to spread it out across. And so we would just connect the two. And so I'd be a partner on that, and then we'd also be handling leasing it too, obviously. And from there, we have an exit strategy, but we may just hold on to it. So who knows? So that's kind of a side thing, like a personal kind of investment. Although I am getting brokerage fees from that, we are running it through Sage. It's kind of two different things. It's a brokerage deal and it's also my personal thing.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
That's what both of these guys are doing, brokerage and investment. Both sides of the token.
It's fun to rip a fee on it and then also get to stay in the deal and capitalize on the appreciation and all that.
There's a few of my 2 or 3 of my homes that I've closed on that I was moving into them specifically for investment properties, and I showed up with like $500 of this is all I need to close on the home because I roll my stuff in and got other fees and all sorts of stuff. And so it's nice to roll that in and kind of two for one it. Was there a time when you were getting into the business, learning, like a pivotal moment for you? Do you remember a pivotal moment of like, hey, I just like leased up this thing by myself. Like I just made this transaction. Do you remember like, oh, okay, like I did it? Like, was there a pivotal sale that you remember?
Yes. It's you know, I'm gonna kind of go off to the side a little bit on this when I answer this question, but I think my first like big deal or my first just huge check was it definitely felt good, and it was my first time making like really substantial money. And at the time, I didn't have much overhead, no house payment, car payment, nothing. And so I just had all this cash all of a sudden, and I was like, "Oh, this is great!" Like, you know, it feels like I finally made a mark and all that. But the negative side to it, that this is kind of, I think this answers another one question you're going to ask me. But the lesson I learned from it was I kind of got a little too comfortable after that month because I just had that another big deal closed in the same month, and I, had enough money from that month to, more than less people make in a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great, whatever. I feel like I finally got somewhere. But the thing is, I got a little comfortable, admittedly. And this is kind of a lesson that I had to learn that, I still worked hard. I was still working on the deals I had going already and like servicing the clients I already had. I wasn't as aggressively pursuing new stuff as I had been.
Yeah.
And so once I kind of got to the, where I wanted to do that again, I was like, I forgot how long the ramp up period is for these deals. Like it takes a while. And so it definitely taught me a lesson that like, I would tell anybody this, like once you get your first big check, like, it's not going to last forever, one. And two, like, you got to train yourself to like keep going. Like it's, and it can be hard to do. It's easier said than done. I definitely, suffered a little bit from it, but yeah, definitely, your first big sales deal or whatever kind of deal it is, it's definitely, it feels great. It feels like you've gotten compensated for your hard work and all that. And feels good, but you got to be careful too, to kind of be a wise steward and, keep your practice going. So,
yeah, it's crazy. Success is obviously not a continuum, and you have to continue, especially in all of our businesses and for investors listening, that it's not a continuum. You have to continue to pursue, the day-to-day things and the fundamentals to continue to bring in new business or bring in new deals or whatever. So that's a good perspective that I think a lot need to hear.
I mean, it's what they say. I think it's the fat pigs get slaughtered, I think is what they say. So I mean, complacency is an enemy. And so it's one of those things where you got to be careful about that. So,
yeah. JJ Watt said it's success isn't known, rent is due every day, something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Success isn't known, rent is due every day. So you constantly have to fill the hopper back up, and I would guess you're never getting too high or too low off deals and like, okay, we got something under contract. Great. Let's just like keep it on because like maybe it falls out, maybe it doesn't. Let's just hit the next one. More hooks in the water. Is that kind of the thought process?
Yeah, I think y'all would agree with this too. Like early in your career, like as soon as you get something under contract, it's exciting because you've not
calculate that commission check.
Yeah, well, Tom taught me from a very, very early on to never calculate your commission.
Yes,
check. Superstition until it closes, and I still do that unless I just have to know what it is for like, our company budgeting purposes. Right. That's the only time I'll calculate it beforehand. But no, yeah, it's yeah, I just it's, you gotta keep it going because I mean it's about building momentum too. Like what I've trained myself to do is like you've got to think about like how far can you take this thing, how far can you push this thing, and that's done a pretty good job of no matter what happens, good or bad, you just keep going like it didn't happen type thing.
Yeah,
that's almost an argument for myself. That's why I like the investment side of the business. You guys, all three of you guys are broker, and an argument for myself. Like I like the investment side of it because it's not like brokerage. It is super transactional, and you are like, okay, to your point, I got to put these irons in the fire. I like just because I'm closing this deal next week, I got to have more irons in the fire so I don't get.
Yeah, and one more in that last question too is when you get all those first couple deals you get under contract before they even close, you're just excited you got some under contract, and it's because partly like you've not experienced what can happen and likely will happen at some point.
Yeah,
I mean, not just me, just people I know in the business, the craziest stuff can happen. I mean, I've got a friend that more than once he's had a building under contract to close and it got pushed back, extended. and a tornado came through and wiped the building out.
Oh,
and so he didn't get paid on it. And so, I mean, just there's so much that can happen. And real estate, I think we work harder than anyone else in the world. This is a hard profession. It's it's a test of grind. And so, I mean, there's just a lot that can happen. And it truly takes experience to kind of, conduct yourself in a way that stuff just doesn't affect you.
That was leading into my next question, which is, what is the hardest part of the business that people don't talk about in real estate?
That's a good question.
You kind of were just hinting on it.
Yeah, I would just say you've got to learn to be resilient, and you can't be someone that gets really emotional.
Yeah.
If you get some under contract, great. But wait till it closes to be excited.
Yeah.
And when it does close, I think everyone should celebrate their wins.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you should be so hard on yourself that, I have this issue to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're hard on yourself, it makes it really difficult it affects your mood, which affects everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to worry about what you can control, and all you can do is prepare and respond in life. You can't control anything else beyond that. So,
Yeah.
Depends who you ask. You ask someone might say property management is the hardest or the worst, or some might say the transactional management. It closings get pushed, lender falls out, building gets wiped out by a tornado.
Yeah.
That part is intensive. Construction management is could be, one of the harder parts. I think it depends. For me, that's why I like having a good broker. Having a couple of good brokers that can manage the transaction for you. My time value is raising capital, going, evaluating next deal, making sure property managers are doing what they say they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But having a broker that can manage a fucking tornado or just take one on okay, we're moving. That sucks a lot, but
yeah.
Where's the next potential?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, once you had enough happen to you, it really just iron sharpens iron type thing. So
Strengthens the chin, keeps getting stronger.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy with the tornado thing. I've never.
Is that in Rogers or Cave Springs,
Siloam? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they were people ask about Arkansas if it's in tornado valley, and I say it's more Oklahoma is tornado valley.
Well, here's the thing: is that tornado? They're saying that the tornado alley is actually shifting east a little bit, we're kind of on the edge now.
I've heard people say that as well, and I would believe it. I mean,
it's adjusted.
Kind of feels like it.
I lived in Cave Springs my first at Fayetteville my first year, and then Cave Springs for 5 years. I've been at Rogers three years, and Cave Springs was actually would get hit for a while. People in Rogers were we didn't really feel anything. Cave Springs, you would kind of feel it, and people on the border out towards Tulsa, but it definitely Rogers seems to be
Well, and they say we're in the Ozarks, but and I didn't mean this to be the Weather Channel podcast, but we're the Ozarks, but really Fayetteville's a little hilly, Bella Vista's a little hilly, but anywhere in between's decently flat. Yeah. It's not
the Fayetteville people always want to say we don't get tornadoes, we have so many hills. Not know how much accuracy there is to that. But,
nobody's an expert on
that. The data is there. They don't really get what we get over here. So, maybe they're right. So
that explains it we have listeners not just in Northwest Arkansas, and the Fayetteville people just sums it up. We've talked about each town has its own distinct culture, and even the Centertons and the, not just the Rogers, Fayetteville, Springdale. And we talked about it with Tom, even Pinnacle, uptown versus downtown.
Do you see with you doing commercial deals, is there a city you like dealing with best?
Honestly, probably Rogers.
Really?
I say that because I live here and I operate here mostly, and I've done deals in every town, but it is probably because I'm just comfortable with it, and I feel like there's more than likely I've driven by that building a million times, and I've already looked it up online, and I just know about it.
Yeah. So
it makes it easier. And it's comfortable, and the city is pretty fair to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So relatively speaking, that's probably my favorite town to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
knowing the landscape, I'm sure helps a lot in those conversations with the city. Having more confidence in your vision. We talked about Tom. Tom and Rogers were on the same wavelength when they were building uptown. So I think that's also because he knew the landscape very well, and he could speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know and for someone like him, he's got an extra layer there just because he was on city council, court, all that stuff. He was super involved, which I can't say that yet. And so, he's got that going for him too. So I'm sure that was his answer as well. But
Yeah. How I wanted to dive into a little different section of the podcast, which is like a continuation of legacy. So you're 31 now.
31.
31 now. So your dad obviously provided some type of foundation for you to platform off of. So you didn't just jump and fall off and do nothing. You jumped to the next level. And a few podcasts and books I've listened to, usually the first generation, they grind and they get it. The second generation, which is the generation I'm in, and it sounds like generation you're in, they see the grind. They didn't necessarily like feel the hardness of the grind. Like growing up, they weren't like, oh, like we don't have any food, but like they saw the parents working. And so we have a respect for it. And so we grind too. And then the third generation, the percentages are that it dies off. And so I guess the question is, how do you uphold that for your future children if you have them? And what does that look like to be able to say, hey, I know life isn't hard, but here's how we make stuff happen?
You know, I gotta be honest, I don't have that answer yet. That's you know, I like how you put that, because I think I agree wholeheartedly with it, that, you know, the first generation puts in the work and gets it. The second is a good steward of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different experience. They grow up with it already being there, but they realize what it took to an extent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a good steward with it. And it's the third generation that's kind of a wild card. Like they could, like they enjoy what it, you know, brings them, and they may be a good steward as well, or they could just totally just not understand. So
Yeah.
that's honestly, I don't know how you do it, to be honest. Like,
I've seen that, and a lot of it's like by the third generation, the percentage that it like goes away it jumps up so much. And
Yeah.
I've seen that multiple sources. So that is, and obviously Matthew's not married yet, or so I think, you know, Tom was very very aware of being humble. He mentioned the word humble which was funny because you're like, save the best for last as you ended here. And Tom was like, but I think that was, you know, partly why you didn't, sometimes people push it. Like, I think that's going to be the challenge for, like, you know, me in fatherhood, close to fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've seen other fathers, you know, that's front of mind right now. You know, it might not be as front of mind for you,
Yeah.
but like for me, it's like, I've seen some really successful fathers push their kids so much that they just don't want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
You know, and some have the guidance. So
yeah, there's definitely a balance to it.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I could think of to do at this point, and you know, luckily I'm not a father yet, so I'm still figuring out how I would do this. But
good.
I think the only thing you could do is to set an example. I mean, one thing I can think of is I remember whenever Tom was handling Walmart real estate when I was a little kid, and he was traveling, I think it was 3 or 4 days out every 2 weeks, traveling throughout the Midwest, because they were shuttering all the regular Walmarts and transitioning to super centers. And for 8 years he worked at Walmart, I think it was, you know, 3 or 4 days every 2 weeks being out of town, not seeing his family. And doesn't sound like a lot, 3 or 4 days, but that compounding effect over 8 years every 2 weeks, that's a lot of time away from your family. And I definitely do remember that. And so I know he didn't enjoy that, but he knew he had to. And so I, you know, have memories like that I can kind of equate to be like, okay, this is what it takes to, you know, provide for your family, do all that. So
Yeah.
It's almost motivation too, to like make sure that you don't have to do that for your future family. Like, okay, I want everything set up so where like I can create my own, I can be at all their ball games, practices if they need me to, you know?
Right. Yeah. I got to see my dad literally spend all-nighters at his office, just like falling asleep in the chair, and we go bring him breakfast in the morning or something, and he'd grind all night long over and over, and all-nighters, and just fall asleep in the chair. And it created a lot of respect. I think that's kind of what you're touching on, is like, you're like, you have this, like, no one else has more respect for your dad than you, and my dad than me. And I think same things is because we got to see him go through it. And I'm like, you know, part of that was instilled in me. I was like, okay, how do I not do that? Like, I don't know if I want to do that, or I don't know if I can like do that. So like, how do I, not to say that your dad and my dad weren't smart, but like, how do I like work a little smart? Like, how can I capitalize and multiply some things where I maybe don't have to do some lighters and do some stuff? And I think that's maybe, I think a lot of it, without being a dad, you know, listeners, I'm not a dad yet. But I think something is instilling those values in a kid, and like we're gonna have to be so diligent about like showing them like, hey, you know, life, you don't just wake up and everything's good. Like, here's your history. You know, we have the institutional memory to go, here's what my dad did, and we're walking them through that in due time, you know.
Yeah, just set an example, I think. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, Brandon, did you kind of get to see some of that with your dad too? I'm assuming, because his dad's been in real estate for a while.
For sure. So my dad worked with his dad, and they worked together in business all the time, and so I got to see both of those generations like just grind together, and I have memories too of like, you know, younger Brandon at a baseball game, and dad couldn't come because he's got to work, or he's got to go meet a client or whatever, and so it's funny how those little things kind of stick with you, but kind of makes you as a man though kind of look at it and be like, okay, this is what I loved about what my dad did and what he created, and here's what you would like to do better, and kind of, you know, start to pursue that and build off of that, if you will.
I'm glad you said that, because that was one thing I was meaning to mention too, is that like everybody's different. Like, you know, although our parents may have, you know, been great at what they do and, you know, built some really great and everything, like, you know, we all have strengths that they don't, and we grew up with different experiences than they did that built us a different way. And there's ways for us to capitalize, because we can take what we learned from them, but also take our experiences growing up, and just kind of build on that platform.
That is so big, because I see so many people in our positions take the platform and just like be like, I'm not using it. I'm walking
cruise control.
And I'm like, all right, how do I use this as a springboard to like, okay, I got this great solid foundation. These footers are solid. This is poured. Like, how do I take it and do more with it? And I think it's very honorable what you've done, and everyone in this room's done with their life. And we're not just hitting the cruise control button, I think, which is hard. And I think it's going to be even harder for us to translate to our future kids whenever that may be. Switching topics a little bit. Of course, we're all around the same age. What are some trends that you see for this area, or rather, what would you like to see trend-wise for this area as far as commercial buildings, the skyline? Do you want to see it getting higher? Do you want to see bigger restaurants coming in? What would you like to see for trends-wise for this area?
I think most of what you just said, I'd like to see. You know, the city has done a good job of keeping up with, you know, what is trending in urban areas throughout the country. I know the roundabout's a hot topic for some people. I don't mind them. I just blow right through them. Keeps the traffic moving.
I don't mind them.
But you know, that's something that, like, you know, they were, you know, on the forefront of incorporating those, and so it does add an urban feel to the area. And you know, they're doing other things like, you know, the new city building code is they're trying to encourage people to build up onto the street and the sidewalk with not much green space separating it, just to add a more urban feel to it. And that, you know, obviously with this Steak and Shake, you know, project we're doing could make it more difficult, because that building is pretty far set back from the sidewalk. And so we may have to see, you know, how we're going to make that work. But, you know, in general, stuff like that, like, it makes it more urban feels like, you know, kind of like Dallas uptown area, a little less like Arkansas. So that's one thing too. You know, as you said, building higher, I believe there's no restriction on height anymore. That the city just did that. And so I don't know if we have the need for that yet, but I mean, I'm kind of glad we don't have that yet. I mean, 10 stories, I think, is as tall as we need right now. We could justify going higher, and we've thought about it before, but it's one of those things where these buildings are so expensive. Like, we're blessed that after we build them, they're leased up in 2 years. And, you know, what are we able to shoulder more than 200,000 square feet of space to lease up? How long will it take to lease up? This is all kind of uncharted territory. So
Plus, you know, you go build a 25-story place, it'd be like, look like a sore thumb here. Like, why would we even need that?
I had some skinny buildings sticking up out. I mean, it's.
But I mean, at one point, that's what Hunt Tower looked like. So at some point, you know, it's like it's kind of paving away. And Tom was saying too, like, a lot of these like lease prices that you hit on these buildings that, you know, were put up, Hunt Tower and some of the others that you just mentioned, it felt like, how are we going to lease that up, and how are we going to get this price? There's no way. And then it does, and then you just kind of hit new landmarks.
Every building that we've done, that's been the whole like topic of discussion. It's like, can we get this much in rent? And of course, we're doing that again with the visionary over here.
And
so I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but it looks good so far. But,
Yeah.
we'll see though. But no, yeah, we don't have the need to build super high yet. I'm glad that we don't too, because, eventually, yes, it will get leased up, that there will be people that'll, take the space, but it's going to generate so much traffic around here, and there'll be density issues. And I mean, I think people like where we're at right now because it's urban. It has everything you need. You can shop here, you can eat here, you can work here, and you got, golf, Top Golf, and everything. And you don't have to deal with traffic jams everywhere. I mean, the only traffic jam you have to worry about is the Chick-fil-A over here. So,
Yeah. Do you feel like just in your experience and what you're, dealing with the city, do you feel like they are already planning for those kind of things, those density issues that could come later?
I think they are. They've done a pretty good job so far of, being ahead of the curve and all that. And so I would assume they will continue to follow that trend. So I think, the density issue, like, I don't think we'll see it for a long time. We're running out of land to build on, so I don't think we'll run into that issue ever. I mean, there's that hotel that's gonna be built there, which isn't happening now, and that was a concern about that. And so, but I think we've got plenty of, obviously, enough energy around here already. I think it's going to attract a lot more restaurants, like you mentioned, things to do, stuff like that. Which will attract a more young professional demographic as well.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing. One of the things that I wanted to ask was, where do you see the most potential growth for commercial real estate in Northwest Arkansas? And I have an idea, but
growth is in like what area or what?
Yeah,
sector?
what area? What city? I mean, well, I would say
city
what
is it?
area and / what city, because Rogers is different because you have downtown in here too, but like what area in Northwest Arkansas do you see the most potential?
Not Fayetteville. I'm just kidding. No, I would say Rogers for sure, Bentonville. And of course that spills over to Centerton and Lowell a little bit. And Pea Ridge, I hear, is getting some of that as well.
Yeah.
And I don't really operate over there very often, but I spend a lot of time in Rogers, Bentonville, Lowell, and time in Fayetteville, and Springdale. I would say Rogers and Bentonville, just between the new home office just opening in Bentonville, in conjunction with what we've already got going on over here, and in conjunction with what the Waltons are doing over on the Bentonville Square and all around there. That's just so much activity in one county that it'd be hard for Washington County to, be able to match that. It's just, there's a lot to talk about. So.
Do you see Centerton as always a kind of commuter town, or do you see anything commercial ever getting built in Centerton? Because right now, all the investors from out of state call me all the time. And they're like, well, I see everyone's talking about Centerton, but why? I'm like, honestly, it's just a bunch of flat land and a bunch of residential buildings. And they just go to Bentonville. That's what people do there. Do you see Centerton being anything more in the future?
I don't think so. I mean, it kind of comes off to me, like you said, like a suburb to Bentonville. In a way. I mean, just a bunch of single family stuff going on out there. I mean, you got some retail and some retail centers and stuff out there for your amenities, and you have everything you need.
Chiropractic clinics.
Yeah, I mean, you have everything you need, but nothing more type thing. So I mean, I personally don't see it, but I don't think I'm the person to ask either. I think there's others that operate more over there that could have a better answer for that. So.
We operate an apartment in Centerton, Watercolor. It's right on the border of Centerton and Bentonville, and it does super well, 99%. We've been able to get the phase 3 leased up. I think deeper into Centerton still feels like you still see cows out there. But the closer you get to the Bentonville border, I know the flippers from HGTV, they opened a shop up in Bentonville with forget their names, but
I know what you're talking about.
There's some interesting developments going over there. I think Bentonville is starting to have almost Rogers has the pinnacle uptown, uptown. It's funny you said uptown Dallas, because I've described that to out-of-state investors too, of pinnacle as an uptown versus downtown Rogers. I think Bentonville is interesting. Walmart's home campus, they just opened that up for thorough traffic. That's going to be different than the square in Bentonville. X&A is still right over there, still part of Bentonville. We're buying an apartment complex out there, and people, some people say that looks rural out there, but it's literally in Bentonville. And X&A is $35 million expansion. The $180 million highway going that way is really going to open up X&A. So I think it's really cool. there's a lot of excitement in like almost every market. Like you're super involved in Rogers, and I think it's interesting here. So
Yeah, I want to go back to, no, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to hate on Fayetteville, but because I think they have done a very good job when it comes to maintaining their identity. It's a college town. It definitely still feels like Arkansas, because that's one potential, you call it a knock, I guess, if you want to, on Rogers and Bentonville, is it doesn't feel very Southern up here, and some people want that. And if you want that, you can go to Springdale or Fayetteville and still have that. And so they've maintained that, but they've also added, some cool restaurants, some cool bars, things to do. Obviously, they've got the Razorbacks still. And so they've done a good job, keeping it how it is. And, it's been the same for, 10 or 15 years, but like people, I guess, don't really want it to change. So
Yeah.
that's a funny description. Like it's more Southern, we have a Wright's barbecue up here. So it's got a little South, but that also came from Johnson, which is,
Fayetteville, basically.
Washington County.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's I think there's good and bad to that for sure. And then I think just kind of going back to what we were talking about with Centerton, I think the reality is at some point it has to continue to go out, because we're running out of land, close to 49, right? And so I think Centerton at some point will be a beneficiary of commercial, and it'll be more of a hub. And even like going down to Highfield, because if you look at other developed areas and cities, like around the airport is very developed, and there's a lot of residential and other things going on, and people like being close to the airport sometimes in other big cities. And so, I think, I mean, is that the way you kind of see it too, as we continue to grow next 10, 20, obviously this is looking longer term, but do you think Northwest Arkansas starts to get some of these outskirts cities start to become hubs like a Rogers, Springdale, Bentonville, Fayetteville are?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's Centerton. I don't think it's going to be, just the thing tomorrow, but I think, long term, I think it's a good bet for somebody looking to do something out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when we're 50, 60, I want to see any potential issue with Centerton being some sort of hub in Pea Ridge or like a Farmington or something like that. And Elkins is really trailing behind now, but there ain't much popping out there.
It's out there.
Even Cave Springs, out where Tom lives, like, when they first moved out there, I guess 20 years ago or so, he said, he was like, the growth will be coming out this way at some point because the airport's out here.
Yeah.
And, 20 years later, it's still not a metropolis out there, but it's, you can feel more energy than there was prior.
Yeah.
So,
You really can. So you deal with a variety of different clients, I'm guessing, in the commercial real estate field. First off, do you ever deal with like new investors in the commercial field? Is that somebody you deal with?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
What's a common mistake you see them make? Or is there a common mistake you see them make?
We're blessed that, people are usually pretty sophisticated around here, that if they're investing around here and they have the money, then they're usually, they know what they're doing. That's usually the case.
Yeah.
But not always. I think one, this is for someone that's probably new to the area or new to putting money in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
One kind of misconception that we see is that like people will come into this area, want to place money, and they think they're getting ahead, they're beating, the race to Northwest Arkansas, essentially. Kind of like, Austin, Texas back in the day, people were, rushing there because that's the next thing. And it's really, people kind of know about us now. And so you're not really, people walk in here, think they're getting a deal on something, and it's just going to be a home run and all that. And I mean, this is a great place to invest, but it's not somewhere to invest if you're really just trying to get in at the bottom level, because, it's only, going up and the demand is there. And, there's a lot of out-of-state money coming here now.
Yeah. Do you feel like a lot of times your initial conversations with those new investors are managing expectations and going, hey, I find for me, a lot of times they're like, hey, I want, for single family homes and small multifamily, it's, hey, I want $800 of cash flow on, and I'm like, okay, that's awesome, but it's just not going to happen. Like, I need to set your expectations from home run to like single or a double or something like that. Do you feel like you're doing that a lot?
You're good to be doing that, because that's what I was taught to do as well. Definitely off the bat, because it saves everybody time and effort if you're just transparent off the bat. I mean, there are some people that have made a good career over promising and
under delivering.
Yes. Like just to get, there's people that will say, oh, I can get you that just to get the listing, And
Yeah.
and they do get the listing, and sometimes will get sold for much less what they said they could sell for, so they end up getting the deal done
Yeah.
either way. But that's just not the best practice to go about it. In my opinion, our company doesn't really encourage that either.
Mhm.
I mean, we've all kind of got the same mentality that, let's be transparent off the bat because, for one, like if you overpromise them, yeah, you'll probably get the listing
Yeah.
and you'll get your sign on that property. But the thing is, like, you want that sign off the property as soon as possible.
Yeah.
You don't want it just to sit there forever because it'll look like you can't get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And also your client's going to be annoyed at you because you said you could deliver this for them and you're not.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's just multiple reasons that, like, you should just be transparent off the bat. You should be going after listings that have, an owner that has reasonable expectations and that you can, deliver on.
That was my next thought is like, do we even want to take on the listings or the buyers that like have these unrealistic expectations and all they're concerned about is, hey, whoever tells me the highest price, that's who I'm listing with. It's like, they're probably not like thinking too deep on very many levels.
Yeah. I mean, that happens. And, we get beat out all the time by other firms that will say they can sell it for more money, and maybe they can.
Yeah.
But we try to, be, if anything, we'll be very detailed in what we think we can get for it, and we will avoid at all costs, like, over promising what we can get for it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've lost listings before to people, and the thing is, like, I don't really fault the owner for wanting more money.
Yeah.
But because they're hiring us for a reason. They're leaning on us as experts to, we're in the end, we're in the data business. You got all the data for what the stuff sells for and who's buying it. And they lean on us for our information to tell them, what they can get for it. So if you got, 2 or 3 respectable firms that are, pitching for the listing, they're going to go usually with the one they'll say they can get the most money for it.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Unless someone like us who says, you can't get that much, but here's why, maybe with a very detailed case, sometimes that can prevail in the end. So
a lot of times I've seen success from on a different scale, your commercial and residential, and going, hey guys, I will turn my computer around. This is what anyone sees. Past 180 days, blah, 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 blah. Here's what we're looking at. Here's what the data shows me. So your home's worth $450,000. I know XYZ agent just told you could get $550. Hats off to him. I'll tell you, if you want to list for $550 with me, I might, if it's just a little bit over my comps, I'd be like, sure. Like, I'm not going to tell you not to list with me, but I am saying, like, hey, if we're going to start higher than what I'm showing, like, be prepared to sit and let's have a game plan for like what it looks like, a drop to get us back down to normal. So I think having sellers and buyers with realistic expectations is really important. And at the end of the day, I think maybe you can speak on this as well. Like, ultimately, when I take those type of clients, I end up mentally exhausted. And when I have the type of people that just understand and get it, it's a smoother thing. They understand. They're not griping all the time. And I'm like, my life is way easier because I'll find myself like a yes man. I'll take that listing. I'll take it. And then it's like my life is hell at that point.
Well, you're exactly right. I 100% agree with that. And the other thing too is, like, time is the big thing. It's gonna take a lot of time and a lot of wasted time whenever you take on something like that, and it's just not worth it. You can spend that time on things that are actually gonna, pay the company money, that are actually gonna get, closed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing I had to learn when I was new in the business was, you want to just go after everything, right? But, I was taught to, be somewhat picky and be educated on who you want to work for and work with. Like, otherwise, you're going to just be, it will have you running around just, searching for things that aren't going to happen. So
if there's somebody listening right now that is potentially in their market or in Northwest Arkansas's market thinking of being a commercial agent, what's one piece of advice you give to them about once they got into the business? What would you do? What's some of the first steps you take?
Well, I think hard work is the bedrock of it. I mean, I'm not one of these people that just says that, like, if as long as you work hard, you're going to, okay, which you will. Like, hard work is irreplaceable. And I think that's where it all starts from, but you need more than that. But that's where it starts. That's the first thing you should make sure that you have. Because if you don't have, like, that drive, like, it's probably not the business for you. Because you eat what you kill, as they say. And so you got to be constantly want to go after stuff, be motivated every day to come to the office, make calls, bring value to your office and all that. So, I mean, I would just say, like, there's a lot of, honestly, there's a lot of lazy residential agents or real estate agents out there.
There's a lot of lazy residential agents.
And commercial.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, people that get their licenses and they just don't work hard. And so there's a bunch of those out there. And so
We get a bad rap.
yeah, there's a bunch of us, and people refer to us sometimes as like a glorified used car salesman.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot, and it's not hard to get your license. And so I think if someone was wanting to get into the business, the first thing they need to think about is like just make sure you're known at the office to be, the first one there that's motivated,
Show up.
dresses well, presents himself well, fun to be around, like personable, all that. But it all starts with working hard because, like you said, we kind of get a bad rap sometimes about, a lot of agents that don't answer the phone or don't respond to emails very promptly, stuff like that. That's easy stuff. I mean, like if you can just do that and just be very responsive and just work hard and everything I just said, I mean, I think that's where it all starts. And also it comes down to finding a good fit because not every commercial real estate brokerage firm is the same.
Yeah.
A lot of them, like we don't do much retail deals. We used to, but we don't do as much as we used to do. There's other firms that do more of that than we do.
Yeah.
And, everyone has their own kind of niche where they fit in a little bit more. Like I said earlier, everybody does everything. It's kind of like everyone's a, jack of all trades, master of none around here. But certain firms do focus more on certain sectors than others do still. So
something I'll piggyback off of that on is something that helped me, and I think you'll testify to as well, Brian and Brandon, is the biggest thing I saw when getting into the business was I found 3 guys that I wanted to be like, and I followed them around like a lost puppy. And I was like, I want to, if you're going into a meeting, I want to be there and just sit. If you're going to the bank, I want to go to the bank. If you're doing whatever. And I did it with my dad when I was selling printers. And when I got into real estate, I found my broker, Kyle Atkins, and 2 other guys, and was just like, how can I follow you around? I think you learn a lot by being in rhythm and in step with those kind of people. Would you concur with that?
Definitely. Yeah. That's a good way to put that. It's definitely, think about like, who are you trying to be in, 5 years, 10 years and down the road, and kind of just, be transparent with them. Like, hey, like, this is where I'm trying to be at. Like, how can I bring value to what you're doing? I'm just trying to learn from you, but I don't want to just be a leech, essentially.
Yeah. Some of those, that's a great point, because a lot of those people don't just want to have someone just sitting in their car with them, just staring at them. Like, you got to be providing some type of value. And like, sometimes I've seen where like, you just have to ping them enough and be like, hey, like, I will do something for you. Think of a job for me. Like, I will do something.
I think that's the ultimate gauge for guys or gals that I've seen that are successful. They ultimately, if you look at the big picture, they just are so good at adding value to people around them, and whether it's their partners or whether it's brokers. Like, I have some investors that I work with that could easily go and take deals around me or cut me out if they wanted to. Like, I'm just thinking of an example here, but just continue to bring me in on deals and add value to me because I've added value to them. And it's just kind of a momentum thing, and but I think like you're saying, adding value to people is ultimately kind of on top of hard work, how you continue to have success, I think.
Yeah, I mean, what I've found is the most successful people have teams around them.
Yeah.
They, there are people that do it on their own, but that's one of those, they burn out quicker than the ones that have support. And so usually those successful guys you want to be like usually will welcome you because they want support. And it's kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats. Like, if they're doing well, everybody around them's going to do well, everybody wins.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love that you said that. Your dad kind of said that, and I'm right now contemplating on like hiring an assistant to like on a salary or something. And so I've been kind of like the one man show, and I'm burning out, man. I'm quite literally spent, and I'm like, I got to hire somebody to do all these tasks. And I think it's 82. I got to focus on some 10X. I don't even know if you've read the book 10X is easier than 2X.
Is that the 10X rule, or?
I thought I was going there. 10X
No.
rule. I've read the 10X rule too.
Yeah, I've
Far
heard
down.
I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
hard work.
similar type of thing, but like I'm focusing on 100% of my tasks, and I'm not able to focus on the 20% that I'm really good at and delegating the other 80%. And so I think that's a really good further step, is like having a great team around you. Right now, it's like me and a transaction coordinator. I think this is something you will benefit from as well.
Sure.
It's like, you and I need to, after this, have a conversation on like, what does it look like to have somebody that's like doing some of the 80% tasks for you. So I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, and like for me, like at our office, like we work several deals with a lot of people, and they're splitting the fee up a bunch of different ways, but it works out because yes, it's getting split up, thinner margins, but you're getting more done.
Yeah,
and these also we're not each other's assistants, obviously, but we're trying to help each other get stuff done like an assistant would in a way, and we're all commission based, and so we all want to do the best job possible on the deal.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where you can trust that person will do well in the meeting without you or make the calls they need to if you are not able to make it, because they will get paid just as bad as you do.
Yeah.
So that's the way I see it too.
That's a really good point, because delegating, like when people are looking to like you, Matt, to like make the decision, they want you, like how do you have a team around you that you feel comfortable with giving the same sort of advice? And right now I'm struggling with like, I don't know if anyone else can give the same advice that I give. Like there are a few other people, but they don't want to be my assistant. So that's something I'm struggling with right now.
Real estate is beautiful in the fact that it's built to have good teams, like it doesn't just have to be someone internal, it's somebody you partner with. Like I see a broker as someone I partner with. And we were talking about it when you were saying like keys to being a successful broker. I was thinking that almost in the investment side, like before you're giving anyone money or time, like reputation should be super, whether they have a reputation is super important to them, and someone on your team or who you're partnering with, which real estate is built so well to be able to partner with. And then something else we talked about I wanted to hit back on was data, like knowing the data or having access to the data. Like Tom, we just talked about was fresh. He's saying, if you don't have that answer, say it, and hey, I don't know, but I'll tell you by the end of the day, I can get that data for it. Like, here's what rents are for today, but you're asking me rents in 3 months, in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. I could probably evaluate that for you and get that back to you. And
yeah, that's definitely good advice. It's so much better to just say, I don't know, but I'll find out ASAP instead of just acting like as bad as you want to know. But of course, the best thing of all is to just already know. But obviously, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So
that's something your dad said. He's like, some of these big people you sit on meetings with, like, do not even act like you know everything. Like, just say, hey, I don't know right now, but I'm going to get back with you in a 3-day period or something like that.
that's the evolution of like as you grow in real estate, commercial real estate, like being fast to know that, like you learn, you're not always having to go look up the information. You start to pick up those pieces from each separate deal. You're picking up knowledge that you're taking.
yeah, it's all about reps.
Yeah.
Getting the reps in.
Was there getting into the business, and even right now, is there or was there a book, podcast, or anything that really helped shape like your mindset around the business or business in general?
Man, that's kind of an interesting thing I've been thinking about lately is there's not a whole lot of commercial real estate content out there.
There's not.
I mean, I'll go on YouTube or whatever, and I'll find some guy with like 20 followers, post a video. It's not very well done or edited, I think there's a real gap there. Like there's not, I mean, you can find anything about anything on social media or YouTube or just out there on the internet to help you learn something. It exists for commercial real estate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a couple podcasts that touch on it.
Yeah.
A guy named Justin Waller I like a lot. He talks about it a lot, but that's not his main thing.
Yeah.
But there's been a few books like the 10X Rule we mentioned earlier. I mean, I know Grant Cardone gets some hate sometimes, but people think he's a scammer or whatever. And I'm like, well, 10X Rule is just about like working really hard. It's a super intense book.
Right.
Nothing scammy about that.
Right.
The art of the deal is like, he has a ton of experience in development and like, it's really interesting. Like, cause Cardone, I was going to go there too. Like there is such a gap in the commercial, hey, we're trying to make a dent with that with NWA Investing podcast covers a little, like a lot of commercial real estate actually more recently.
Yeah.
But I think, what about, my 10X Rule, what I like about that is it's not, Cardone's obviously very into real estate and more multifamily and commercial. And some of what he says in real estate, I don't agree, it doesn't say don't buy a single family home. Like I made $150,000 just by living in my house for a couple of years and moved in. Like if I would have not Cardoned it, like I wouldn't have had that free equity.
Yeah.
But, I like the principle of commercial real estate. I don't know how he structures those deals or anything, but like the hustle, like if you're in sales, like the hustle meant like the idea to 10X and the idea to not have excuses, the idea to like take one on the chin and keep going, that's like and that can translate to growing your business in any field.
Yeah, and one thing he touches on is when you're setting your goals, he encourages you to set goals that may be unrealistic. Which he says that some people will detract from that and say that's you're going to make people depressed when they don't reach their goals and all that. And he was like, well, no, because if you set your goal here, but you end up here, like you may have ended up here if you didn't set that crazy goal up there. You still got somewhere.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like the saying of like aim for the moon.
Shoot for the stars.
Or you shoot for the moon, land on the stars. Yeah. Like
shoot for the stars, land on the moon.
Or whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Potato. At that point, yeah. I'd love to use this as a quick little section or podcast to allow the people listening that are interested in commercial real estate to connect with you. What's the best way for them to connect with you? You can give your phone number, email, whatever.
Yeah, they can call me. It's 479-899-1917. I've got Instagram too, just Matthew_Allen57. I have a Twitter account, but I don't tweet anymore. And I got LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's probably best. But yeah.
Do you like LinkedIn?
Yeah, I do. I think it's probably essential nowadays.
Yeah.
But I don't encourage anyone to be one of these like LinkedIn warriors that spends just an inordinate amount of time on your day just posting paragraphs and pictures of what you're doing. I feel like if you're busy and you're doing stuff, you shouldn't have time to just sit back unless you're like it's 9 p.m. you're about to go to bed or something like that. But
yeah, 100%.
I just downloaded LinkedIn and started my profile, and I'm like, it's like it's weird. I'm like, I don't know how to operate this platform. Like it's so different.
You can't live or die by any other
It took a long time to get it stride. I remember when it first came out, I was in college, I think.
Yeah.
And we had to download the app and create an account as part of a project.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I got it in the first place. And it was really just not interesting. And it wasn't like these other social media platforms that just took off and seemingly immediately.
Yeah.
It kind of took a while to get there, but now it's one of those things where I think everybody needs to have one.
Yeah.
I just think it's like everything else though. It's how you use it is, more important. And so, I think it's good to keep up with things, and everything you're consuming on there is something that you probably would like to know. It helps you in business. So
yeah. Matt, thank you for coming on the show with us. It's been a great hour. I'm really thankful that you took the time out of your day. I know you're busy. And when your dad was in here, his phone was blowing up the whole time. I'm sure your phone's been blowing up the whole time too.
Had a few buzzes.
Thank you for coming in with us. And we're looking forward to sharing it with our viewers. Thank you for listening, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Sir.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an update.
Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for more real estate insights and behind-the-scenes content.
Have a question you want us to cover? Send it our way. And if you're interested in sponsoring the show, visit nwainvesting.com to get in touch. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.